Welcome back to Straight Facts by Dinar Investor.
Trump imposes sanctions on Iran's central bank and reveals another package. September 20, 2019, 1739. U.S. President Donald Trump on Friday announced sanctions against Iran's central bank. Trump said last Wednesday that a new package of sanctions on Iran would be announced, describing the new sanctions against Iran as influential, adding that his view of this country has not changed. The U.S. president said that there is no war with Iran as there are many options for action. Our decision not to strike Iran before is proof of our strength, he said, stressing that the United States is now in a very strong position. Trump's deputy on war with China, the era of economic surrender is over. September 20, 2019, 2:53 p.m. Direct. Vice President Mike Pence believes that the United States will continue to take a strong position in its trade war with China. Mike Pence said in remarks with the network CNBC America on Thursday that the era of economic surrender is over. The United States not only manages a $500 billion trade deficit with China, but the country also loses much from intellectual property theft every year, he said. The U.S. trade deficit with China reached $419.2 billion in 2018, up 11.7% from 2017 figures, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Washington has repeatedly accused Beijing of stealing intellectual property, a claim China has always denied. For too long, one administration after another, Republican and Democratic administrations were prepared to accept the extraordinary disadvantages of American workers and jobs under the name of trade with China, Pence said. He continued, "These days are over, we will continue to stand strong, and the American people can trust that President Donald Trump will continue to stand strong." Pence's comments coincide with the resumption of trade negotiations between the two sides for the first time in nearly 2 months. U.S. Vice President Pence said Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer will meet with Chinese officials next month. What President Donald Trump is doing with China is to defend the U.S. economy and defend U.S. interests, he said. He said Trump's strong stance was believed to have an impact on the Chinese economy. Iraq has no authority to the power of because of a massive migrity to the power of the government. September 20, 2019. Iraqi Prime Minister Adel Abdul Mahdi was forced to write a letter from the plane to explain why he was taking a very large delegation on his visit to China after he arrived in Beijing. Headed by a large government team consisting of about 60 ministers, governors, advisors, officials and accompanying, at a time raised the names of the delegation, a large debate in Baghdad before the start of the visit. Abdul Mahdi was accompanied to China by 8 of his cabinet ministers and 16 out of 18 governors, as well as advisors, officials, escorts and guards, which raised eyebrows at the enormity of the delegation. More surprisingly, the Prime Minister, who is Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, was accompanied by his defense and interior ministers, which meant that he left a major security vacuum in Baghdad. During a period of great escalation between the United States and Iran in the region, foreshadowing a military confrontation. Although the Prime Minister focuses on the economic aspects of his visit to China, he did not take any Iraqi businessmen with him. Iraqi officials often compete heavily to travel on official missions abroad for the purpose of tourism and to benefit from the amounts allocated for those missions. Because of this wide controversy, Abdul Mahdi was forced to send a message from his plane to China to the Iraqi people, saying that time does not allow long waiting and missed opportunities. We need deliberate and quick decisions at the highest levels with the officials of other countries. We aspire to establish a sustainable partnership with them. Abdul Mahdi's visit to China coincides with the participation of Iraqi President Barham Saleh in the meetings of the United Nations General Assembly, which began Wednesday in New York, where Saleh will take with him to the United States and the foreign ministers of planning, an additional vacuum in power, at a sensitive time. Ask for investment even in China. Friday, September 20, 2019. Abdul Zahir Muhammad Hindawi to the power of. The world has evolved a lot, and is now racing against the wind to reach its goals. It was in China. This country was for them an unknown world. They were not adults, but hard-won. They would have wished, if they were birds, to travel that distance and reach that wonderland. Today, everything has changed. Seeking knowledge from China is no longer difficult and dangerous. With the dragon spreading its arms all over the world, there is no country in the universe except China made. This country, with its huge population, has managed to jump, leaps and bounds, fast, stunned the world, and has many solutions to address the problems of other countries, after he succeeded in applying those solutions to reality, and achieved a wide renaissance in all areas. The Chinese are no longer dying of hunger because of poverty, but became a balsam to address the problems of others. They have enormous investments, they have very sophisticated industries, and they have minds that lead to the power of providing the best, even if they were not. The whole world gobbled between overnight. Abdul Mahdi's visit to Beijing, at this time and at this level, comes under intertwined international and regional conditions, will be an important route of the Silk Road, which China is seeking to increase its routes according to the economic feasibility provided by this path, or that it will stir up the appetite of other capitals, which can change their attitudes and speed up their march towards their rock. There are Koreans who are watching what the Chinese dragon is doing precisely, seeking a balance, or sharing economic influence among the rich countries of the region. They rely a lot on Iraq, but they are still intimidated, perhaps waiting for another country, ahead of them, to open the way for them, and the existence of such competition, and this race would provide a golden opportunity more expensive than silk. To choose the best among these three countries, which represent the whole, a mystery puzzled the world, for the speed of their rapid development, though to the power of the results of Abdul Mahdi's visit to China at the head of a large delegation, including ministers and governors, will be particularly important in the field of roads, railways, housing, health, education and other services projects, and the treatment of slums. In other countries, therefore, memorandums of understanding and agreements will be signed, and we will be on a date with a new Chinese presence entirely different from the previous stage, after the Chinese proved that they are smarter than others, when their companies did not hesitate to enter and work in Iraq, despite of the conditions faced by the country. No doubt that you see the visit of the Great Iraqi delegation as a message of commitment and a great Iraqi desire to open wide horizons of fruitful cooperation between the two countries, especially as the supranational